On Saturday night, Mexico's most notorious drug lord, El Chapo Guzmán, escaped from a maximum security prison. This is the second time El Chapo, who runs Mexico's largest cartel, has broken free. President Peña Nieto called the escape an affront to the Mexican state and has vowed to capture him. From Belfast is Patrick Radden-Keefe. He is a staff writer at The New Yorker and senior fellow at the Century Foundation. He has written extensively about Guzmán and his cartel. His piece, The Hunt for El Chapo, appeared in The New Yorker last May. And from Washington, D.C., Don Winslow. He is the author of several books on Mexico's drug wars. His most recent is called The Cartel. I am pleased to have both of them here. My first question, was this inevitable that he would get out of prison?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I mean, let's back up a little bit and take a look at who this man is. He is a billionaire businessman. He's ruthless. He's intelligent. He's organized. And he can't run his business as well from prison. So job number one for him is to get out. And again, this is the second time he's done this. It's unprecedented. A man who was number 2 on the most wanted list behind Osama bin Laden has now escaped not once but twice from a maximum security prison. So I think it was inevitable.
Does that say something not only about him but also about Mexico?
Well, absolutely. I mean, let's take a look at this escape. A mile-long tunnel dug by a construction crew into a maximum security prison, and we're supposed to believe that he didn't have help from the outside or the inside. It's absolutely inconceivable. How did he communicate? Who were these people? Did nobody notice that a tunnel is being dug across a mile of vacant space under a fence and into a prison? So Chapo, again, he has the power, he has the intimidation, he has the organization to do something like this and to corrupt police and government.
Okay. So, Patrick, give me your own take on this, not only based on what Don said in that question, but, you know, when you read about this and you knew about it, what did you think?
Well, look, I mean, I don't know if it was inevitable, but it was certainly predictable. I think that's the difficult thing here. I agree with Don that that what's most disturbing about this is that it was an industrial operation to get him out. If you look back at the last time that Guzmán escaped from prison, you know, the story was in 2001 that he snuck out in a laundry cart. But it's been said by many that, in fact, he just walked out the front door. After that escape in 2001, 71 people who worked at that prison were charged with complicity, including the warden of the prison, who was running the prison at the time. And I have a feeling that in the coming days and months, we'll have a similar kind of experience here, where you'll be looking, how wide is this complicity and how high does it go?
And what would be your expected answer to that?
Well, I mean, I think that what we'll probably see, I'm afraid to say, is some scapegoats at the local level. I'm sure people within the prison will end up getting charged. The big question will be, who are the people who end up not getting charged, not getting prosecuted higher up in the Mexican government? This is a guy who, over the course of his career, has made billions and billions of dollars and has paid hundreds of millions of dollars in bribes. A big part of what he does is grease palms, up and down, all across the country. And so I think the worrisome suggestion in my mind is that you have a situation in which there's actually quite extensive complicity with the government, probably at quite senior levels, but we'll only actually see the very bottom rungs of that in terms of what will be visible and what will be prosecuted.
But you have a president who clearly knows everything that you just said and everything that Don said. Is it impossible for him to create, with the power that the president of Mexico has, a system that's fail-safe?
Well, this is what's so maddening. I mean, when I said earlier that it was predictable, I'll give you a few examples. So the AP actually just came out with a story about an hour ago saying that they have seen documents, which are internal DEA documents, saying that in 2014, DEA had information, so after Chapo was captured, about his family consulting with military specialists about ways of managing an escape, of ways of getting him out of the prison, and that they passed these warnings on to Mexico. So first of all, we know that the Mexican government was on notice now that there was a plan to escape. This is a guy who had escaped before. And then the fact that he used a tunnel. If you look at the history of his career, 25 years ago, Chapo Guzmán invented the border tunnel.
Don, do you assume that he used the tunnel to escape, or that he simply walked out some other way?
I don't actually assume that. I'm wondering if this tunnel story is just a face-saving device that was set up in advance. I more likely believe that Chapo walked out of this prison.
We'll be joined now from Paris by Jorge Castaneda, who is there. And are you in Paris for anything having to do with Mexico, Jorge?
Yes. Hi, Charlie. Yes, as a matter of fact, I am. I'm a part of the President Peña Nieto's delegation on his official visit to France as the co-president, co-chairman of the Franco-Mexican Strategic Council. So that's why I'm here.
What is the president saying to you and to people in his official entourage about this? And I mean, how he calls it unpardonable, but everybody is stunned around the world that the president of Mexico would allow this to happen.
Charlie, I haven't had the chance to speak with the president, but certainly with people in his delegation, what I can more convey to you, I guess, and to our viewers is they all feel dazed. It's as if they've been, hit by a train or something, and they really just don't know exactly what's going on. You have to recall this is an important visit for Peña Nieto to France. We had a lot of difficulties with France in the recent past. They've been patched up. It's a big deal. He's going to be the only guest at the 14th of July or Bastille Day parade on the Champs-Élysées. So it's a big deal for Mexico. And now everybody's talking about Chapo. Nobody's talking about Peña Nieto other to say that what an embarrassment this is and how absolutely incredible the whole story seems to be. So it really is perhaps the most difficult moment of his administration so far. Now, he has a way of accumulating difficult moments, so maybe 6 months from now we'll have another one.
What will it do to his popularity in Mexico?
Unless they recapture Chapo Guzmán very quickly, Charlie, I think this is going to be devastating, even though his popularity is already very, very low. It's the lowest popularity of any Mexican president since Cedillo in early '95, and that was because of an economic crisis. So this is not going to be good because nobody believes it. He's being torn apart in the social media by people making fun of the tunnel, making fun of Saturday night, at the movies or the equivalent in Mexico, making fun of where is he? He's in Paris while Chapo is, has flown to Guatemala now, or maybe Chapo will show up in Paris. And it's really very sad because in a way, President Peña Nieto is not directly responsible for this. The guy is an escape artist. They should have been more careful, but it's hard to blame the president directly for having either allowed this or having even in any way being complicit with it. But there is negligence involved, not on the part just of the people in the jail. There's negligence on the part of the highest levels of government in Mexico. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Okay, let me come back to you, Don, because you do have to go. I mean, so here is a former foreign minister saying, well, the president's not responsible, but it happened on his watch. And my interest is also, is there simply, having everything to do with drug cartels, a culture of money and corruption that in some ways makes this predictable, as we talked about earlier?
Well, I'm afraid there is. And, the Sinaloa Cartel has had members of the police and high-ranking members in the government in their pocket for years and years. So this took a lot of coordination. It took a lot of communication. It took a lot of help from the inside and the outside. And so money often is the answer to that, or intimidation.
Patrick, why is he so skilled at being a drug cartel drug lord? Is he different from the other drug lords? Does he have a better organization? Is he more violent? Is he smarter? Is he what?
Most of the above. This is a guy, interestingly, who grew up a farm boy in the mountains of Sinaloa and left school in the 3rd grade. He's more or less illiterate from what we understand. He has about a 3rd grade reading level. He does text on a BlackBerry with people, so he does read and write a little bit. And he rose to prominence in the 70s and 80s, but then really it was actually after he escaped from prison the last time in 2001 that he really came into his own. There are a bunch of aspects of the Sinaloa Cartel that make it stand out from the others. One of which is that it's horizontally integrated. If you like, it's quite diversified. They move cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and marijuana across the border. In terms of violence, this is a very violent organization. I mean, to Jorge's point about all the levity on social media about this, I can understand it, but it saddens me a little bit that this is such a big punchline, because you realize this is a guy and an organization that is responsible for tens of thousands of deaths in Mexico, and I think that we can lose sight of that. And to me, it's the tragedy of him escaping justice this time. But I think also for Mexico, it's a real reckoning, because it says something about the rule of law in the country if a man who is responsible for that magnitude of suffering can go free.
Back to you, Jorge. When we all come back to the notion that somehow this is the way it is in Mexico, that there is a corruption when it comes to drugs that is so deep and so broad that this is inevitable.
I think maybe we should split it in two in a way, Charlie. The corruption and the drug trade and the absence of the rule of law in Mexico are deep, broad, wide, intense. Whatever adjective you want to use is, I think, accurate. Whichever one. You can take your pick. Now, that being the case, it does not necessarily imply that this guy 2 days ago had to escape, that it was impossible to avoid his escape from that prison 2 days ago. The government was clearly remiss in that sense. They were not watching out. They were not doing their homework. These are two different issues. There's a whole bunch of guys in Mexico who are in jail and who do not escape from jail every day, on the one hand. On the other hand, there has always been an antidote for this. It's not great, but it works, which is to extradite these guys to the United States. But not a year and a half later, but right away. It's humiliating for Mexican sovereignty, granted. It allows the United States government to know a bunch of stuff about what Chapo would have told them about his accomplices in the Mexican government. It makes it more difficult for the Mexican government to be able to interrogate him freely once he's in the U.S. All of these are downsides of extradition. Compared to whom? Or to what? Well, compared to his having escaped from jail on Saturday night. So maybe there was a mistake that was made by the government by not extraditing him right away, or maybe they made a bigger mistake, which is to now, in the last few weeks, to have begun to threaten or advertise the fact that they were going to extradite him. And so he went to his plan B, using the tunnel which he had, but did not necessarily want to use. But once he found out that they were about to ship him up to the United States and say, well, then I'm going to use the tunnel. So, I think it's a terrible situation for Mexico, but it's more a reflection of a general context than something that was inevitable in itself. I read Patrick's excellent piece in the New Yorker this morning. I agree with it entirely, except maybe for that last point, that it was absolutely inevitable. Predictable, perhaps. Inevitable, I'm not sure.
Patrick?
Yeah, I'd make 2 points. I mean, first of all, I don't know that I was saying it was inevitable. On the contrary, I actually think that Mexico could have taken steps to make sure that that Chapo was secured. The 2 quick points I would make is, to your point about extradition, it's fascinating the timing, because the last time Chapo escaped from prison in 2001, he had actually at that point been in prison for years, and extradition papers were getting ready to have him sent to the United States. It was at the point where they were going to ship him to the United States that he broke out the last time, which is an interesting question. In this particular instance, after he was captured last February, there's been a big fight between the United States and Mexico. Chapo was indicted in, I think, 6 or 8 different jurisdictions across the United States. And federal prosecutors here were essentially saying, look, we don't, after what happened last time, we don't know that we trust you guys to hold him. You need to get him to us here. And I spoke with a bunch of Mexican officials over the past 16 months or so who had said, no, look, we can do this. This is actually a test case for the rule of law in Mexico. It's important for sovereignty reasons that we hold on to this guy. And I think in fairness to them, they said, we caught him. And the bulk of his crime took place in our country. We're the ones who have the casualties to show for it, so he should face justice here. The last thing I just wanted to quickly say, Charlie, to your question about whether there's something about the drug trade in Mexico that does make it inevitable, is that something that I think often gets lost when we talk about the war on drugs in this country, specifically with reference to Mexico, is that a lot of the murders don't happen on this side of the border, but we are very much a part of this. We are very much tied into it. It is a cross-border market, right? So we're the demand, okay? It's because of our prohibition that this business exists at all and that it's so lucrative.
So, Jorge, what do you think is going to happen now?
Two things, Charlie. One, what I think will happen, one I hope would happen. What will happen, I think, is when the president returns to Mexico, some heads will roll, even if they catch him soon, because this has been so embarrassing, so humiliating for Mexico and for the president that some heads have to roll. Now, what I hope would happen, Charlie, following Patrick's point, but perhaps going a little further, is that it's time for Mexico to tell the United States, guys, we're done. We're not going to do this anymore, okay? If you want to stop the drugs entering the United States, you do it on your side of the border. We're not going to put up any checkpoints on the highways anymore. We're not going to carry out drug busts. We're not going to go after the cartel leaders. We're going to de facto or even de jure legalize drugs in Mexico. And you guys figure out what you want to do. But we've had enough. 100,000 dead in the last 9 years, over 30,000 people who are missing, an enormous amount of money that's been spent on this, the humiliation of escapes like these, the more serious humiliation of widespread human rights violations in Mexico by the Army, by the Navy, by the police, and of course by the drug cartels also, but they're not part of the Mexican state. This is something which has become absurd, especially as more and more states in the United States legalize marijuana now. What is the point of having people like Chapo in jail and devoting enormous resources to getting them in jail and keeping them in jail and then having them escape anyway, if once they get their merchandise into the United States, it's legal?
Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you, Jorge.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time.
Good evening. Scott is off tonight. I'm Charlie Rose. The drug lord known as El Chapo was captured today, 6 months after he broke out of a Mexican prison for the second time. Joaquín Guzmán, once the most powerful drug kingpin in the world, was arrested after a shootout with Mexican Marines. Guzmán is wanted in the United States. The State Department posted a $5 million reward for his arrest. And Chicago branded him public enemy number one. Ben Tracy begins our coverage.
The man with the towel over his head is believed to be El Chapo, being led by Mexican authorities to an airplane bound for Mexico City. After a massive operation in the town of Los Mochis early this morning, Mexican Marines captured the drug lord. He was wearing a dirty white undershirt and did not appear wounded. He may have tried to escape through the sewer after a tip led authorities to this White House. Inside, they found a small army ready for war. These are just some of the weapons seized, including a loaded rocket-propelled grenade launcher. 5 of El Chapo's men were killed during a violent firefight with Marines. Mexican President Peña Nieto announced El Chapo's capture on Twitter, saying, "Mission accomplished, we have him."
De nuestras instituciones, que durante días...
On television, he called El Chapo's capture the result of days and nights of unequivocal commitment to bringing him to justice. 6 months ago, Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán escaped from the most secure prison in Mexico. This surveillance video shows his last moments in his cell before he walks into his shower stall. That's when he climbed into this mile-long tunnel where he hopped on a retrofitted motorcycle and rode these tracks to freedom. This was his second escape from prison. Arturo Fontes is a former FBI agent who investigated El Chapo for nearly 20 years.
It was unconscionable. There was so much embarrassment on this second escape that there was so much pressure both from Mexico and the U.S., at least to be able to apprehend them.
El Chapo, which means Shorty, may be just 5'6", but he was also one of the biggest and most violent drug lords in the world. He's run the notorious Sinaloa drug cartel, worth about $3 billion. The cartel is responsible for much of the violence that has plagued the streets in parts of Mexico. It also controls nearly half of the illegal drugs flowing from that country to the United States. Guzmán is believed to be responsible for as many as 34,000 deaths. Sources tell CBS News that the tip that led to El Chapo's arrest came from U.S. law enforcement. He is wanted in 6 states in this country on drug-related crimes. And Charlie, in Chicago, he is considered public enemy number 1.
Thanks, Ben. King news tonight. The infamous drug lord known as El Chapo is in the air, headed to the United States to face criminal charges. The cartel boss has twice escaped from Mexican prisons. Margaret Brennan has the very latest on this breaking story. Margaret?
Scott, well, he's one of the world's most notorious drug lords, and he's wanted on a variety of drug trafficking and organized crime charges across the United States. Guzmán ran the Sinaloa Cartel, which is one of Mexico's deadliest drug gangs. He was arrested a year ago, and he has been fighting extradition for most of that time. He is best known for being a daring escape artist, having slipped out of Mexico's highest security prisons twice, once captured here on video disappearing through a hole in his shower, and another time fleeing inside a laundry cart. Scott, the extradition comes as the Mexican foreign minister is expected in Washington next week for his first meeting with the Trump administration.
Margaret Brennan breaking this story for us tonight. Margaret, thank you.
Now to the other news in the night, and we're following breaking news. The man known as El Chapo, the notorious leader in one of the largest drug organizations in the world, is in federal custody in New York City. Joaquín Guzmán was extradited from Juarez, Mexico, and flown by private jet to Islip, Long Island. He now faces several charges for his role as the head of the Sinaloa Cartel. Josh Einiger's at the federal lockup in Lower Manhattan with the story. Josh.
And Liz, it's getting very, very tense here because it's expected really any time in the next couple of minutes the motorcade carrying El Chapo should arrive here in Lower Manhattan. There are heavily armed officers and agents from the Federal Drug Task Force here in New York City, comprising the DEA, the FBI, the NYPD, the New York State Police, other agencies, also the U.S. Marshals Service, which has worked so hard to get him here to the United States over the past year since his recapture in Mexico after yet another escape. At this point, he is on his way here to Lower Manhattan, a long-awaited arrival as federal prosecutors eager to get him in a courtroom. The Mexican government jet touched down in Islip tonight, met by dozens of U.S. drug enforcement agents ready to get their hands on the ultimate prize, one of the world's most notorious, most elusive drug kingpins, Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, now on U.S. soil, soon to face Brooklyn justice.
When most Americans think of organized crime, they naturally think of guys like John Gotti, Al Capone. They pale in comparison to Chapo Guzmán.
Guzmán and his cartel left a trail of bodies across Mexico and the United States, responsible for pumping tens of thousands of tons of heroin under the Mexican border and into the arms of countless Americans. He's facing drug trafficking and money laundering charges in 6 different federal jurisdictions, but Attorney General Loretta Lynch, the former U.S. attorney in New York's Eastern District, steered the case to her former team in Brooklyn. They'll get first crack at him. El Chapo became a legend for not one but 2 daring escapes from maximum security Mexican prisons. Authorities paraded him in front of cameras last January to celebrate his second recapture. He'd been on the run for months after tunneling a mile from under his prison cell, but police caught up to him after his bizarre secret meeting with the actor Sean Penn, who interviewed him for Rolling Stone magazine. Now, a full year later, he'll be judged by a Brooklyn jury, and if convicted, federal prosecutors vow he'll never escape. And back with a live look right now. We are at the Federal Detention Center. It's called the Manhattan Correctional Center here, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, I should say, here in Lower Manhattan at Park Row and Pearl Street. And this is where federal agents and NYPD officers are eagerly awaiting the arrival of El Chapo. This is a very heavily secure scene. Of course, they certainly do not want him to be able to escape again. There are helicopters overhead, police helicopters, which indicate that the motorcade is likely coming this way, and in fact I actually hear sirens in the distance. This is a pretty curious timing of this extradition on the very last day of the Obama administration. Certainly the relationship between the incoming Trump administration and the Mexican government has been rather tense. It was, of course, up to the Mexican government to allow extradition, and the Obama administration in the end, according to published reports, agreed not to seek the death penalty in this case. That was a condition that Mexico apparently imposed on this extradition. We are waiting for the arrival of this motorcade, and actually I see that the barricades have been lowered, so he's about to arrive here. They're raising the arms of that barricade. If you want to stay with us for just a few more moments, we will hopefully see the arrival, the very eagerly anticipated arrival of this very elusive drug kingpin.
Josh, we are looking at live pictures right now. We are seeing this motorcade as it moves into the federal detention area there, the lockup there.
And here it is.
Josh, can you tell us how
and here
long
it is.
is
I'm sorry,
the...
Liz.
Go ahead.
With the motorcade, I believe it's about 13 vehicles long, and I believe we're going to see one of these peel off and pull into a garage that is just in front of the camera. It's not entirely clear what entrance they're going up, and there it is. That we believe is likely the SUV, or at least one of these that's going into that garage entrance that is carrying El Chapo. Yeah, it's the only one that went in, and you can see those really heavily armed marshals backing in. Very, very heavy security here, and now he is safely inside. This is actually, he went in the back of 500 Pearl, which is one of the federal courthouses here in Lower Manhattan, where he'll be processed, and now he is officially in federal custody. Tomorrow morning he will appear at arraignment in Brooklyn federal court, so this whole thing will happen in reverse. They'll take him out of here, and then they will go over to Brooklyn. His arraignment set for the morning in a press conference, we've been told, for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning with the U.S. Attorney of the Eastern District. Liz?
Quite a remarkable scene there tonight. All right, very, very much appreciated, Josh Einiger, for us in Lower Manhattan with the custody of the notorious kingpin known as El Chapo. Josh, thank you.
We're about to go into El Chapo's prison cell where authorities say he used the blind spot to escape. Yes.
Adelante, pase por donde le diga el oficial. Nuevamente su muñeca izquierda. Su muñeca izquierda. De este lado, meta su mano, por favor. Sí. Más adentro. Más. Ahí está bien.
Deeper.
Por favor. Pase por el lado.
How do you feel claustrophobic? ¿Qué televisiones conocen?
Son varias. Digamos, esto igual de igual de. Ok, pasa.
You're on the other side of it? Yeah. Oh. Is he in Mexico? Canada, one time on the US border by accident. Oh. It was.
Adelante.
Huh? I wouldn't be able to get out. Oh no, Oh look, that's a helicopter, no? No. Why is it about that? Oh, right, yeah. You're like a syndicate.
Let's take a picture.
Nivel C. A su derecha. That's it. That's it.
What's this built in the 80s? Rentals? 94 or something? It's
¡Nívense! A su derecha, no sabíamos si me mate.
Please don't be worried. Well done.
So it's the same about basics. No? This part is not basics. It's something that's yeah, yeah. Not bad. Huh? It's not bad. I mean, if you want to be in here. What size? Get out of here. What do you want to say about that? No, I find it fascinating. Yeah, no, I do, because I find it fascinating, but it's stable, because it's this energy. Alcatraz is like one of the good in it. Yes. It's actually very small. Oh, it is, yeah, it's very, very small. But it's really cool. San Francisco, yeah. And they still have the escape tunnels. I don't know. No. It's the I want to go to the nighttime. Nighttime sales was really scary.
And you can still there, right?
You can, there's hotels. Yeah. You sleep in the cells? No, you can't sleep in the cells. They have little hotels inside. No, there are ex-prisons. There's one in the fire.
There's one in New York and it's a hotel. And it's like,
Istanbul used to be famous prison where they kept all the political prisoners. Now fixed that. Just before the last Gulf War. Her dad held it. Yeah, and now it's a full city. That's incredible. Yeah, she was so excited. Did he die there? No.
Apagado todo, de abajo el equipo. Apágalo,
Aquí después grabarle, tienes 2 minutos. Ready?
Yep.
You good?
Come on.
Yeah. You good?
Yep.
All right, so we are entering a Chapo cell. This is cell number 20. Here we go. This is the first time in here. And this is where he was pacing back and forth. There's that camera. There's that surveillance camera. He was pacing back and forth in this area. And then that camera didn't see what was happening here in the shower. So there you go. We're walking over here, and there it is. This is the shower, and there's that hole. This hole where he could propel himself. Good?
Yep.
And so this is where he was pacing back and forth. And take a look. This is what the camera couldn't see. Behind this wall, there's the hole in the shower. This is the shower area. There's the hole right behind this wall. This is what that camera could not see. This is where he was just pacing back and forth. And this is where he slept. So it's a very, very tight space. But take a look. There's that camera. But take a look. There's that camera. It's a very tight space. But there's that camera that was video recording everything. And he was just pacing back and forth. They say that's normal. And that's when he went straight for that shower to look down that hole and disappear. Okay. That's it. Okay. So after pacing back and forth, he walked over here. This is the shower area. This is what that security camera couldn't see. And there's that hole, that shower hole. You're going to come in?
Do it again.
So this is where he was pacing back and forth almost nervously. And he walks over here, hidden by this wall. That camera couldn't see it. He just ducks and goes right into that hole.
Yeah, good. Yeah, just get the bed down. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they're like garages you drive in. It's for prostitutes.
Hold on. Perdón.
The luz? Where is it?
There is we don't know. We suppose in
Yeah.
I'm not sure how which one.
Totally agree.
Yeah, we're getting B-roll of all these plots too. So like,
Right. Okay, help me write this thing about to send the picture out. It's pretty cool. We got a tip about which manhole. Yeah.
Por aquí, por dónde?
M16 with the rocket launcher, with the grenade.
I would say an M4.
Hold on, my friend in the military says it's M16.
I said it's an M4. That's okay. Look, the stock was definitely an M4. It looks like that, but you should see the back.
He went to West.
So do I say that it was the only one that, we tried a few and it was the only one that opened?
Yeah.
El famoso póster ya lo quitaron, parece. No sé si ¿Ya lo quitaron?
Police arrived to help. I wouldn't say the police arrived to help us. Or police arrived to... So I'm going to walk like this. So let's practice. They didn't plan to use this as a safe house, but it happened to be the closest building with some protection to where they arrested them.
Rolling.
Now the police had him. They had to find a safe location to put him. So they brought him here. This area and hotel is protected. Now he was arrested about 200 yards that way. And this is where federal and local police waited for the Marines to arrive. They brought him in this hotel room. And it was right here on this bed where they took that famous picture.
Rolling.
So this is the manhole.
Rolling.
So this is the manhole cover that they came out of. Take a look inside. It's about 3 feet high and pretty dirty down there.
Rolling.
Now the police had him. They had to find a safe location to put him. So they brought him here. This area and hotel is protected. Now he was arrested about 200 yards that way. And this is where federal and local police waited for the Marines to arrive. They brought him in this hotel room. And it was right here on this bed where they took that famous picture.
see him? That's not him.
You guys want to keep going?
It's not him.
Keep going. It's that movie thing.
Guys, move in.
reunidos en esta área, no sabemos exactamente lo que está pasando, no sabemos cuánto tiempo va a estar aquí el Chapo, por qué lugar entró.
No, it looks pretty tight. We can take back what we have.
Mary, relax. Michael, can you come around to the mic, please?
Down.
And if you please identify yourself.
Sure. My name is Michelle Galland. I'm the Deputy Attorney in charge of the Federal Defenders. We're just going to make a brief statement today, and along with me is Michael Schneider, an Assistant Federal Defender in our office. What we just had confirmed for us today is that the charges here in the Eastern District of New York were never the subject of the extradition proceedings in Mexico. The government of the United States has asserted that the Mexican government signed a document or prepared a document agreeing to allow Mr. Guzmán to be charged in this district. However, we have not seen that document. The judge today ordered the Mexican government or the consular officials who were present in court to give those papers to either Mr. Guzmán or us, and told them that they were not required to ask for a signature. We had a brief meeting with Mr. Guzmán, myself, and the officials from the consulate. They continued to refuse to give us the papers without requiring a signature from Mr. Guzmán. They would not leave us the papers. They would not allow us to review the papers unless Mr. Guzmán signed them. I can't imagine any lawyer in this circumstance who would allow Mr. Guzmán to sign a document that he was not able to read or that we were not able to review and advise him on. Thank you.
What is the issue with the witnesses? What's the issue with the conflict with the witnesses? Can you explain that?
We're not going to address the conflict. We address that in court, and there may be further litigation involving that now.
The issue about whether Mr. Guzmán is entitled to appointed counsel, the government, the government and the court asked us to provide a financial affidavit, which we expect we'll do in the future. We think it's ridiculous that the government expects Mr. Guzmán to choose a counsel when he's locked up 23 hours a day. He can only be visited by Ms. Gallant and I and two of our paralegals and the head of our office, and we think one other private attorney has been given access to him. If they want him to have access to hire a lawyer, we believe he needs to be able to meet with his family or at least speak to his family and confer with them about his wishes regarding counsel.
His wife has traveled here from Mexico. She would like to... His wife has traveled here from Mexico. She's here today. Okay.
Bring Emma. Emma's not going to speak.
She's not going to speak and address the media. But stand in front of her? Yeah, I'm asking her to come around. Okay. Emma,
can you explain why you believe the conditions under which Mr. Guzmán are being held are too restrictive, and why you asked those?
We do believe they're too restrictive. Essentially, he's locked in a cell for 23 hours a day. He's only permitted out to speak to limited members of our office and 1 hour of exercise a day. It's extremely restrictive. We believe he should be allowed permission to eventually visit with his wife, to make phone calls to our office without further restrictions. And we believe that in light of the fact that he has caused no security problems since he's come to this country, he's conducted himself the way he should in court and with the agents who arrested him, that the current restrictions are excessive.
He did escape prison twice.
Were they able to work it out today? I know there was a request to have him meet in the holding cell. Did that work out?
No, it was not. At this point, it's still the only people who can meet with him are United States counsel in the holding cells here and interpreters and our assistants. At the jail, it's been limited to 4 or 5 members of our staff and 1 other attorney.
Why can't you characterize his demeanor? Why is there a restriction?
Well, that was my point, to the sort of glib remarks about his prior experiences, I should say, in the Mexican prisons. I don't think there's any thought that if I have the guards give him a glass of water during a 3-hour meeting, that somehow that's going to effectuate an escape.
How would you characterize his demeanor? He's been here now in the United States for 2 weeks. What's his demeanor? Is he resigned to staying here for a long time?
I don't think I can speak to that. I can say he's very concerned, as are we, about the legality of his extradition to the United States, specifically to the Eastern District of New York. But beyond that, we're not going to comment.
Are you suggesting he should be tried in another district?
I think eventually we'll address this in writing, but the extradition proceedings in Mexico, as far as we are aware, because I think, as many of you heard, the government hasn't provided us with the papers, but as far as we are aware, they did not involve charges in this district.
So you're saying the extradition was illegal?
I'm saying we have concerns about its illegality.
Is this Mrs. Guzmán's first time seeing her husband since he was arrested? How did she feel about that? How did she feel about him having been taken away?
I don't want to speak for Emma, but I think it has been very difficult. This is the first time she's seen him since he was brought to the United States, and this is so far the only way she's been allowed to see him is for the limited period of time when he's brought before the court.
Could you just clarify for the general public?
I think we're going to have no further comment today. The last name is Gellernt.
Okay, and your name?
And your...
¿Em hago en español?
Finito. Sí,
¿Em hago en español?
Emma, ¿cómo te sientes? Okay. Do you know when she arrived? Can you say when she arrived?
I don't know that I can say, but
can we get the spelling?
Released her up in the air.
Oh, God.
I didn't catch it. I did.
We didn't.
Judge, as he stated. And I know that the judge felt that I was re-arguing the motion for a new trial, but there was a reason why I stated it again. Because the issue is so important, and the issue is so germane to our justice system. And in essence, what happened here, and as I said this before I met any of you,
this case was simply an inquisition. It was a show trial, and how it ended is exactly perfect for that description, in that it didn't make a difference what the jury saw, what they said, what they discussed, what they voted on. At the end of the day, all that mattered was the government's evidence, no matter how flawed it may have been, no matter how many lunatics and sociopaths and psychopaths that it depended on. All that mattered was the evidence, and the jury be damned. We learned that up to 5 jurors broke the law, violated the law, while they were judging Mr. Guzmán for crimes. And nevertheless, we couldn't even get a hearing to determine what actually happened, because as we all know, had we had that hearing, chaos would have ensued, and we would have been back here for round 2. And that was something that the United States government could never have. They fought desperately against it, and that's why the judge ended this with a very quickly written and canned 43-page opinion, which will now be part of the appeal and probably the most significant appeal issue. So all we had asked for at the beginning was a fair trial. I'm not here to tell you that Joaquín Guzmán is a saint. I'm not here to tell you that what occurred, that the witnesses were unusual than any other American trial. All we asked for was fairness. And no matter what you think of Joaquín Guzmán, he still deserves a fair trial. Everybody does in America. Because if you don't give a fair trial to Joaquín Guzmán, what happens to the guy off the street that gets arrested for tax evasion? Well, they got away with it in a case like Guzmán. They can get away with it in a case like that as well. With regard to Andrea Fernandez Velez, it was a wonderful audition to watch her. I have empathy for her. But what was left unsaid was the fact that for her drug dealing, which included many things that had nothing to do with Joaquín Guzmán, and many things that she tried to do behind his back, which came from government witnesses. I'm not making this up. She didn't spend a single day in prison. So I think that was a pretty good thing to end up with, to be involved in drug dealing for all those years. She had romantic relationships with multiple narco traffickers. She certainly did her part. She talked about concern about being killed. Well, she certainly did her part to get other people put in the soup as well, having nothing to do with Joaquín Guzmán. But today, I'm not here to bury Andrea Velez Fernandez, just to point out that this is one of the sweetheart deals that the government witnesses got. For all of her drug dealing, for all of her crimes, she did not spend a single day in prison. And she's not the only one, because other people testified in this case that never spent a day in prison, that weren't even charged with the crime. The killers that you heard that testified, short sentences. Some of them are out already. Some of them have been out for years. Others are getting out soon. And they're all going to be here. They're all going to be here. We're not getting the best from Mexico. We're not getting the best from Colombia. We're not getting their best. They're here. They're going to get citizenship, and they're going to be walking amongst you. Remember that. All to get Joaquín Guzmán. Could they have gotten Joaquín Guzmán without every single one of them that they made these deals with? Of course they could have, but it might have taken more of an effort, and it might have put a conviction more at risk. So with that, I appreciate all of you coming. You guys worked very hard. I apologize to all of you that have been here since last night, but it's not my fault. If you have any questions. Well, I think Joaquín wanted to finally have his piece. He wanted to say it. He wanted to get out what was on his chest. This is a guy that had an exemplary behavior in the most crushing of circumstances and conditions. We heard about some financial defendant who tried to choke a prosecutor during his trial a couple of months ago. Joaquín Guzmán behaved like a gentleman. He respects the American justice system. That's why I'm bringing this up. But all he wanted, and he said to me from day one, is I just want a fair trial. You tell me that I can get justice here, I just want a fair trial. And at the end of the day, we like to pretend that it was justice. It was not justice. You can't have a situation where jurors are running around lying to a judge about what they were doing, and learning about allegations that were purposely kept out by the government. So he's frustrated with that, but look, he's got tremendous equanimity, and he's handled this well. I know that everybody's thinking, well, he's been convicted of these horrible crimes. Why should anybody care about him? Well, we care about him because we care about our system of justice here, and we want the right thing to be done. And that's really that's why he felt he had to say those words today. He appreciated that his treatment by the guards in the MCC. They always were gentlemen to him, and that's important too, because not everybody's always treated him so well.
What do you think would be a fair outcome of this, given the charges that he was facing?
Look, a fair outcome was a fair trial. That's all we wanted. I never came here, to tell you after a conviction that perhaps the decision wasn't the right one. All I said is I wanted a fair trial, and that's what every defendant. I don't care if you're charged with jaywalking in the Bronx, you deserve a fair trial. It doesn't always happen in America. You saw it happen yesterday with the Eric Garner case. This is a guy that was choked in broad daylight by a police officer and killed over loose cigarettes, over nothing. And this office decided not to bring charges. So you'll forgive me if I don't have the utmost respect for how they handled this case and their desperate efforts to avoid a hearing. All we want is justice. That's all we wanted. That's all anybody wants when they come into these hallowed grounds. And that's exactly what we should expect.
Jeff, what about the $12 billion? The government says there's $12 billion. What about that?
I think it's $12.7 billion. I don't want you to short anybody $700 million. But it's a fiction. It's part of the show trial that we're here for. They've been looking for his assets for how long? Decades? They've found right now, before they get to $12.7 billion, how about they get to $1? When they get to $1, wake me up. Right now they're at zero. So I don't know that we're really ever going to see anything with that. It's a fiction. We all know that. It's part of the show.
But they calculated that.
It was
what are the assets?
Magnificent calculation. It was wonderful. The number of trees that have been felled to allow the Eastern District of New York, U.S. Attorney's Office, to put in all their thousands of submissions. And that it took me about a month until after the trial that every night at 11:58 p.m. every night now for a month after the trial, I'd wake up in a cold sweat because I was waiting for the 60-page submission that would come every single night like clockwork. My alarm is set for 6 o'clock in the morning, and my internal alarm was set for 11:58 p.m. because every single night we'd get a whopper of a submission from the government that we had to read and digest and respond to before the next jury day.
So can he make any restitution? What are we really realistic?
If there's no assets, I don't know, maybe he could write an IOU. If there's no assets, there's nothing to pay. The government knows this. It's procedural. It's a fiction. Perhaps. I don't know. I mean, look, Emma is, obviously, she's crushed by this. This has been an incredibly arduous situation, not just as his wife, but as the mother of his two beloved children. His kids are innocent here. And this has been an incredibly compellingly difficult thing for them. They have to see their father in a very small, locked room where they don't get to have any physical contact. The kids are not allowed to hug their father. Look, and I don't want to suggest for a second that I don't understand some of the government's security measures, but these are, little girls that just want to hug their father, and they're denied that opportunity and have not hugged him in years.
What about an appeal?
Appeal is being filed. Here's the walking and talking embodiment of the appeal. Mark Furnish will be handling the appeal. And there are significant issues here relating obviously to the motion for a new trial, the extradition issues, the curtailment of cross-examinations that I've never, in a case in 28 years of practice, have I ever been curtailed as much as I was in this case. But I understand, I get it. This was an inquisition, this was a show. We needed to show the world that we do things better here in America in terms of the justice system. You saw it yesterday with the Garner case, and again, I would say you saw it today with the Chapo Guzmán case. It's not always better. We're not always exceptional. We're the best in the world, but we're not always exceptional. Any other questions?
Mark, you think you can handle Epstein and this appeal at the same time?
I'll figure it out. I'm confident I can handle both.
I mean, look, this is what we do. People, a reporter said to me yesterday, is Do you get to pick and choose the cases you have? Why aren't you careful with who you decide to represent? Well, there are a lot of lawyers that told me not to come into this case. There are a lot of lawyers that told me not to come into the Gotti Jr. case. There are a lot of lawyers that have been telling me for years not to come into cases because you need to be more careful and protect your career. You know what? We're here to live on this earth one time. Fuck that. I'm here to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm here to try cases, and I'm here to give people their constitutional rights, and I'm sorry if it offends some people, but I'm just here to do my job, and I'll do it until my last breath.
What we're here to do is represent individuals and make sure they get the most vigorous and zealous defense possible, and we're here to make sure that those rights are afforded to them so that every one of us, we're here to make sure that the rights the Constitution guarantees the worst among us, the alleged worst among us, are afforded to each and every one of us, and we're here to defend individual clients, whether it's Jeffrey Epstein or Joaquín Guzmán. The same rules of play should apply to anyone who walks into an American courtroom, from the richest to the most notorious to the lowliest. That's what we're here to do, and that's why I can represent Jeffrey Epstein or Joaquín Guzmán and anyone else who's charged with a serious or even a minor crime.
Thank you.
The prosecutors criticized Chapo for not expressing remorse. Does he feel remorse?
You know, I don't know that today's the day for remorse. They want him to express remorse because based on their trial where they said that he was guilty, you know what? Maybe they should express remorse for not giving a hearing in a case in which half the jury cheated and lied to the judge. So, respectfully, you know, I don't know what they expected today. Would remorse have changed the statutory minimum of life in prison? Of course not. You know, I don't know that. Why are the rules different for Joaquín Guzmán? He wanted justice. That's what he was mourning today, his lack of getting justice. Thank you.
We have major issues for the appeal. Some of them were fronted today, obviously. The inhumane conditions of confinement that were imposed in this case and interfered with his and anybody's ability to present a defense, and we know he's presumed innocent. That's one of the things that sets our country apart from any other country. No matter how bad the allegations are, no matter how infamous the defendant is, he came here presumed innocent just like every one of us standing here today. And as a pretrial detainee, he's been convicted of nothing. He was subjected to conditions that, let's face it, are functional equivalent to a living death penalty. And that's not justice in the United States of America, and that's in no way the kind of justice that the framers of our Constitution ever contemplated. That will surely come up on the appeal. Mr. Lichtman has eloquently explained to you the really troubling way this new trial motion was handled, with very serious and facially credible allegations swept under the rug just to preserve a verdict in the name of expediency. Because as Jeff said, the hearing in this case would have been very ugly, and God knows what it would have revealed. And let's be clear about this. These allegations, these factual reports that this juror made on their face say they're just the tip of an iceberg. So to this day and forever in history, this verdict will be clouded and stained because we don't know the full extent or the truth of what happened here. But we know it's very serious, and we know that on pain of criminal sanction, this juror came out and said that the entire jury, that's too much, a great number of members of this jury panel lied to the judge's face. And if the head stinks, you got to throw out the fish. And this jury smells based on the allegations, and you've got to think seriously about throwing out the body, which is the verdict. And we didn't get a chance to do that. And that's very troubling, and it's not in keeping with the way we do justice in this country.
And that's right. And I'll leave it as this, is that you can bury Joaquín Guzmán under tons of steel in Colorado and make him disappear, but you're never going to remove the stink from this verdict due to the failure to order a hearing on the misconduct of the jury in this case.
Do you know when they're going to transfer him to Supermax?
You know, I hope it's going to be, 60 days we asked for so he can work on the appeal. I don't know that he's going to Supermax, I presume it, which is, actually maybe a walk in the park compared to what he's been through right now. Thank you.
Señores, soy José Luis González Mesa, abogado del Chapo Guzmán en la Ciudad de México, encargado de él y de su familia de lograr la repatriación a México en virtud de la serie de irregularidades en la entrega a las autoridades norteamericanas. Quiero informarles que hizo buena defensa el abogado Guzmán, pero si ustedes se enteraron, la defensa del propio Chapo fue extraordinaria. Se quejó de tortura, se quejó de pisotearle sus derechos humanos como procesado, como prisionero, porque finalmente el Chapo Guzmán tiene la presunción de inocencia. Y hablando de tortura, señores, el presidente Trump le acaba de negar una visa humanitaria a una anciana de 92 años. Es lamentable, es ruin, es inhumano, es anticristiano, es antijurídico, es anti todo el prohibirle a una anciana que nunca ha pisado los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica y que sus 92 años se los ha pasado en un pueblo de la sierra de Sinaloa, cuidando de su familia. Es campesina, es ejidataria. Y esto viene a corroborar la tortura psicológica a la familia de Guzmán Loera, del Chapo Guzmán. No se le ha permitido a la esposa ver, a la última esposa, a la señora Emma Coronel, ver a su esposo. Y nosotros ya iniciamos en México, ante el presidente López Obrador, la repatriación del Chapo Guzmán, insisto. Y insistimos, la fortuna del Chapo Guzmán, lo que sea, $1, $1,000, lo que sea, se generó en México. La siembra, el cultivo y la cosecha de la amapola y la marihuana se llevó a cabo en México. El dinero del Chapo Guzmán no pertenece al gobierno de los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica, pertenece al gobierno de México. Gracias, señores. Gracias.
Everybody needs to be behind the barriers now. Everyone. Everyone needs to be behind the barriers. You can't wait here. You have to be behind the barriers. Everyone, no exceptions. Everyone has to get up and move behind the barriers now. Everyone has to go on the other side. No exceptions. Over the barrier. Go down there.
¿Tiene un caucho? ¿Tiene un caucho? ¿Tiene un caucho? ¿Tiene un caucho? No, así es mejor, así es mejor.
Nope, nothing in front here. Is everybody set up?
No.
There's not going to be any questions. There's just going to be some statements made, and then that'll be it. The first speaker, the first speaker is going to be Assistant Attorney General Brian Benkowski. He'll be followed by the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District, Rich Donahue. I'm just telling them who the speakers are. You have the email already. The U.S. Attorney from the Eastern District will be followed by the U.S. Attorney from the Southern District of Florida. After the U.S. Attorney from Florida, it'll be Angel Melendez, Homeland Security, followed by Tim Foley, the DEA, followed by Michael Driscoll, FBI.
1 2 1 2 1 2.
Foley, Foley, Drug Enforcement Administration, Associate Special Agent in charge.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
The first speaker is going to be Assistant Attorney General
Brian Benkowski, followed by the U.S. Attorney from the Eastern District, Rich Donahue, followed by Ariana Fajardo Orshan. She's the U.S. Attorney from the Southern District of Florida. Angel Melendez, Homeland Security, Special Agent in Charge, followed by Tim Foley, Drug Enforcement Administration, and then the last speaker will be Michael Driscoll, FBI, New York office.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys all ready?
Yes.
They can come out?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
We got 1, 2 here. Wow. Now we'll go over there.
Gather around. There we go. Great. Ready? Good morning. My name is Brian Benchkowski. I'm the Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division at the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. The long road that led Chapo Guzmán from the mountains of Sinaloa to the courthouse behind us today was paved with death, drugs, and destruction. But it ended today with justice. Mr. Guzmán thought for more than 25 years that he was untouchable, that there was no problem affecting the Sinaloa Cartel, that he couldn't bribe, intimidate, torture, or kill his way out of. But thanks to the hard work of the men and women of federal law enforcement, the offices of the individuals who are standing with me and behind me, justice was done today for the American people. Today's sentence is the culmination of a tremendous partnership and a tremendous amount of hard work between the Criminal Division's Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Section in Washington, Rich Donahue's office here in the Eastern District of New York, U.S. Attorney Ariana Fajardo's office from Miami, the DEA, HSI, FBI, and our foreign law enforcement and prosecutorial counterparts around the world. I am tremendously proud and grateful to stand here shoulder to shoulder with these men and women and the offices that they represent. Today brings a measure of justice for the American people. It brings a measure of justice for the country of Mexico, whose institutions were corrupted for decades by Mr. Guzmán and the Sinaloa Cartel. It also is indicative of the fact that the federal government, the United States Department of Justice, our federal law enforcement counterparts will not rest ever, ever in the face of a threat like Mr. Guzmán and his cartel. We will bring you to justice if you pump hundreds of thousands of tons of cocaine and other drugs into our country. We will find you, we will extradite you, we will prosecute you, and we will bring you to justice. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Rich Donahue, U.S. Attorney for Brooklyn.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning. I'm Rich Donahue. I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Eastern District of New York. Minutes ago, in the courthouse behind me, United States District Judge Brian Cogan sentenced Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán to life without the possibility of parole, plus 30 years. This sentence is significant and it is well deserved. It means that never again will Guzmán pour poison over our borders, making billions while innocent lives are lost to drug violence and drug addiction. We cannot undo the violence, misery, and devastation inflicted on countless individuals and communities by the drugs that Mr. Guzmán and his organization inflicted on our country for more than 2 decades. But we can ensure that he spends every minute of every day of the rest of his life in a prison here in the United States. The same fate awaits anyone who would seek to take his place. I want to thank our outstanding prosecution team from the Eastern District of New York, Assistant United States Attorneys Gina Parlavecchio, Michael Rabati, Patricia Natopoulos, and Hyrule Mehta, as well as Assistant United States Attorney Brendan King, who is handling the $12 billion forfeiture proceeding. Paralegals Huda Abusher, Melissa Bennett, Eileen Rosado, and Angela Ancale Jimenez. From the Southern District of Florida, Assistant United States Attorneys Adam Fells and Andrea Goldbard. From the Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Section in Washington, Assistant Trial Attorneys Amanda Liscombe, Anthony Nardozzi, and Brett Reynolds. Finally, I want to thank our law enforcement partners who helped us secure justice in this case. The DEA, the FBI, and HSI. We thank them, their agents, and their courageous partners for bringing this case finally to justice. I would now like to turn the microphone over to my colleague, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, Ariana Fajardo.
Thank you, Rich. My name is Ariana Fajardo. I'm the United States Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. I will give just a brief statement in English, and then for the Spanish media, I will give a brief statement, or attempt to give a brief statement in Spanish. Today's life sentence really has a profound impact in our country. This is the only sentence that can be given to somebody who has spent a lifetime poisoning the streets of our community. This was not something that could be done by one person. As I looked around the courtroom today, I was very much impacted by the number of agents and prosecutors that it took and the years and decades of evidence that was gathered to bring this sentence today to its culmination. The impact of today's sentence can't be overstated. The world has now been rid of the brutality of the Sinaloa Cartel leader. This is very important for us, for our community, and for our government. I want to thank all of the agents and law enforcement that were able to bring out the evidence that came out in this case. Because of them, their decades of work, we now know, and the world now knows, who El Chapo is. He is a drug dealer that would do anything to keep his nefarious empire afloat. It included kidnapping, it included corruption, it included torture, and it included murder. And the same way that you see us standing here today, we are united, all 93 U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice, and we are here to tell you and tell everybody out there, be careful, because we are going to work together and we are going to rid our streets of these illegal drugs. It may be one case at a time, but we are not done working. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ariana Fajardo. Yo soy el fiscal federal del Distrito Sur de la Florida. Hoy el juez ha condenado a Joaquín Guzmán, conocido como el Chapo, a una sentencia en que él va a pasar el resto de su vida en una cárcel. Esto es muy importante porque él ha envenenado las comunidades de muchos de este país, muchas comunidades en este país, y eso no lo vamos a aguantar. Hoy, con la sentencia y la condena que han puesto, nosotros estamos libres de la brutalidad del líder de la Sinaloa Cartel. Muchas gracias a todos los fiscales y agentes que han trabajado por años en traer este caso a la justicia hoy. Y le decimos que nosotros como Departamento de Justicia vamos a seguir trabajando para poder quitar todas las drogas de las calles de estas comunidades. Y no vamos a dejar que nadie envenene nuestras comunidades en este gran país. Muchas gracias. En este momento llamo a Ángel Meléndez. I can now call Angel Meléndez.
Good afternoon. My name is Ángel Meléndez. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for Homeland Security Investigations here in New York. I'll make some brief comments in English and then brief comments in Spanish. I want to start off by saying it's done. The book on El Chapo Guzmán is closed today with this life sentence. Now, when you look at the meaning of the sentence, it's a culmination of decades of investigating and working hard in collecting evidence to be able to eventually prosecute and convict this drug trafficker. There's two stories to this. On one side is the fact that corruption and violence is important for drug traffickers like Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán to be able to thrive. On the other hand, we see that the heroics of the special agents, the prosecutors, the detectives across borders who worked so hard for decades to be able to bring this man to justice and provide a voice and some type of justice to the many victims of his actions. This sentence today finally separates the myth of El Chapo from the man, Joaquín Guzmán. And for the man, it is the end of the line, and it is a reality that he will not be able to escape. En español, culminó. Cerramos el libro, el capítulo de Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán. Con la sentencia hoy, el señor Guzmán pasará el resto de sus días en una prisión federal aquí en los Estados Unidos. Con esta sentencia vemos que la corrupción y la violencia es necesaria para que personas como el Chapo Guzmán puedan llevar a cabo sus actividades delictivas por décadas. Pero también vemos el heroísmo de los agentes, de los fiscales, a través de todas las fronteras, que han trabajado por décadas para recopilar evidencia, para llevar a cabo esta sentencia hoy monumental e histórica. Porque el señor Guzmán pasará el resto de sus días en una prisión aquí en los Estados Unidos. Y con la sentencia se separa el mito del Chapo del hombre Joaquín Guzmán. Y para el hombre es el final de la cuerda y es una realidad de la cual no se podrá escapar. Thank you. And for now, my colleague from DEA, Tim Foley.
Thank you, Angel. Timothy Foley, Associate Special Agent in Charge, Drug Enforcement Administration. Joaquín Guzmán, infamously called El Chapo, will be known in history as the most feared drug lord who built the Sinaloa Cartel into the most violent, prolific, and powerful criminal organization in the world. Today should be marked in history as the day American and Mexican law enforcement closed the book on the reign of Chapo. I applaud our federal, state, local, and international partners for their incredible collaboration during the hunt for Guzmán, his arrest, extradition, trial, conviction, and today's sentencing. DEA's Mexican law enforcement partners are national heroes. The Mexican Marines are responsible for flushing Chapo from his hideout in the mountains to his capture in Sinaloa, Mexico.
It took Chapo a lifetime to build a drug empire, and now he will live the rest of his life in a U.S. security prison. This sentencing sets the stage for American and law enforcement to continue our efforts in dismantling the most prolific drug trafficking organizations in the world. Our collaborative work will be used as a model and solution to bringing to justice international drug traffickers whose poisons have left to the worst drug crisis in U.S. history. This is a message to drug syndicates. If we could put the most powerful traffickers in the world behind bars, anyone and everyone that breaks the law can and will be brought to justice. Again, I thank our partners here and in Mexico and throughout DEA worldwide for their diligent and brave work during this entire investigation. And now I'd like to turn over the mic to FBI Special Agent in Charge, Mike Briscoe.
Good morning. My name is Mike Driscoll, Special Agent in Charge of the New York Criminal Division for the FBI. Today, after many years of waiting, the investigators of the FBI and the many law enforcement agencies represented here with me have witnessed a day that one of the most feared and dangerous drug traffickers in the world will spend the rest of his life in prison. Our country is battling a heart-wrenching and deadly epidemic from the types of drugs Guzmán was convicted of trafficking across our borders. We want this case to serve as a warning. We are willing and capable to use whatever resources, to use every partnership available to go after the leaders of these cartels and make them pay for the damage they do to our country on a daily basis. I'm speaking today for the many FBI divisions, the many agents, analysts, employees that have put in tireless, endless days of work on this investigation, and to their foreign partners in Mexico and other locations that have contributed to this day. I cannot possibly sum it all up in one statement here, other than to say we are extraordinarily grateful for their efforts, and their efforts have gone to making our country a little bit safer today. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, everybody. Next will be Drug Enforcement Administration Special Agent in Charge for New York, James Hunt. Sure.
Good morning. To reiterate my peers' sentiments, this extradition is a significant victory for the U.S. law enforcement at all levels, the U.S. and Mexico. It's often said, it's a misnomer, that law enforcement, we don't get the big fish. Well, Joaquín Guzmán's arrival in the U.S. shows that we always do. All these international drug lords either end up dead by the hand of their own people or foreign law enforcement, or end up in U.S. prisons. I hope this brings to attention the problem at hand, and that is that 144 people who die every day in the U.S. from substance misuse. And I hope this sends a message to drug traffickers that with law enforcement collaboration, you will be brought to justice. Lastly, I want to thank our partners who assisted us. Members of the New York Drug Enforcement Task Force, the numerous DEA divisions worldwide, Homeland Security Investigations, the FBI, Customs Border Patrol, U.S. Marshal Service, the NYPD, New York State Police, and all the prosecutors, Eastern District, Florida, NDDS, and around the country. Thank you.
Next up will be Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent in Charge, Angel Melendez.
Thank you, Mr. Capers. Good morning. My name is Angel Melendez. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for ICE's Homeland Security Investigations. I want to start by mentioning that for the past 20 years, any investigation into transnational crime had some way, shape, or form a link into the Sinaloa Cartel, specifically into the tentacles of Joaquín Guzmán, El Chapo. We started out looking at the Mexican Federation, which was basically a collaborative effort between the Sinaloa Cartel and the Beltran-Leyva Cartel. And as they started to war, it provided us the opportunities to start picking these cartels apart and bringing to justice the leaders of those organizations. As you heard throughout today, throughout this morning, specifically as you read the indictment, Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán is being charged with smuggling over 200 tons of cocaine and laundering what would be the equivalent of the gross national product of many countries around the world. This is a powerful individual, a powerful criminal, the most notorious criminal of modern times. Last night, some of us had the opportunity to see him arrive at the airport. And as he deplaned, the most notorious criminal of modern time, as you looked into his eyes, you can see the surprise, you can see the shock, and to a certain extent, you can actually see the fear. As the realization started to kick in that he's about to face American justice. And he's about to face American justice in a city that's foundation is bedrock, as strong as the will of the citizens that live in this city. And I assure you, no tunnel will be built leading to his bathroom. I have to thank all of our partners here in the United States, but also globally, because today is a great day for all of law enforcement. A couple of words in Spanish. Hoy es un gran día para las agencias de ley y orden a través del mundo, porque a través de la colaboración de los países y de los Estados Unidos es que hoy estamos anunciando la extradición significante del criminal más notorio de nuestros tiempos. Y una de las cosas que yo estaba mencionando en inglés es que anoche la persona que llegó a Nueva York no era ese criminal tan notorio y tan poderoso. Era un criminal que tenía una cara de perplejo, de asombro. Y es porque la realidad de que él se va a enfrentar a la justicia norteamericana lo hacía temblar. Porque en esta ciudad no hay túnel que valga. Yo le quiero agradecer una vez más a todos nuestros compañeros, agencias de ley y orden a través del mundo, específicamente al gobierno de México, por hacer este gran día una realidad. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much.
Next will be Federal Bureau of Investigation, Assistant Director in Charge for New York, Bill Sweeney.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning. When the FBI conducts an investigation into a large criminal organization, our goal is to take out the leadership, to create a void and to create chaos in the ranks so it becomes harder to traffic their drugs and guns and to hold that leadership accountable. After many years of work, FBI special agents, analysts, and professionals from across field offices across the country work side by side with law enforcement agencies represented by those standing with us today. We will now finish that job together and put one of the most feared and dangerous drug traffickers in the world in U.S. federal prison permanently. As explained a few minutes ago, Guzmán ruled an iron fist in Mexico, creating a worldwide empire using murder, intimidation, and bribery to remain at the top. We will use the intelligence we collected to go after those that remain. We want the investigation against Guzmán and his extradition to serve as a lesson to all those aiming to replace him. We are willing and we are capable of using our extensive resources and partnerships to continue to go after the leadership of these cartels and to make them pay for their deadly and destructive actions in this country. I'd like to thank our law enforcement partners, especially the DEA, HSI, the Marshal Service, the State Police, the New York PD, all of whom are represented up here, the prosecutors, and countless other agencies around the country for their dedication, their professionalism, and their partnership. I'd also like to thank the FBI professionals from our offices around the globe who have been investigating Guzmán for years. Your work in countering his deadly organization makes a difference. The tremendous time, the effort, and the personal sacrifices that you have made to bring Guzmán to justice have been nothing short of exceptional. Thank you.
Next will be Commissioner James O'Neill, New York City Police Department.
Thanks, Rob. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, USA Attorney Farrar. Thank you for everything that you do on this case, everything you did on this case, and everything you guys do to keep this country safe and the city safe. I just want to highlight the incredible work the members of the Drug Enforcement Task Force have done here and continue to do every day on other cases. The NYPD, the DEA, and the New York State Police, working with Homeland Security and the U.S. Marshals and the FBI, who continue to be our great partners in so many efforts. NYPD detectives and the task force have been on this for years. Thousands of miles traveled all across the United States and Central America and Mexico to take investigative steps and conduct close to 100 interviews. All of this shows that we, along with our local, state, and federal partners, never shelve an unfinished case. Chapo Guzmán is back on our soil now, where he can finally be brought to justice for his many years of criminal behavior. Moving hundreds of metric tons of narcotics into the U.S., behavior that's affected so many people here in New York City and beyond for so many years. Again, thank you very much for all the work that was done on this case. Thank you.
Questions, folks?
Could you talk a little bit about how the decision was made to bring the case to Brooklyn as opposed to another federal jurisdiction?
Sure. So there were, as you well know, I believe, multiple jurisdictions in the U.S. Attorney community that were investigating Chapo Guzmán, including Southern District of Florida, Narcotic and Dangerous Drug, us, the Northern District of Illinois, Southern District of California, Western District of Texas, and after an exhaustive review of all of the various cases, it was determined that the partnership that had been formed between our district, the Southern District of Florida, and Narcotic and Dangerous Drug brought the most forceful punch in the way of a case. We have a combined 11 or 12 seasoned narcotics prosecutors who have devoted their careers to this war on narcotics. We have, working with our partners, amassed a formidable case, including some 40 or so witnesses who provide an intricate look into this organization, the devastation that was wrought, and it was decided that that would be the most effective way to bring all the forces of the United States government to bear in bringing him to justice.
Mr. Chambers, if you could explain to us how yesterday came about. It seemed to catch a lot of people off guard. It was long planned, but it seemed to have been suddenly. And was that a Mexican plane that took him? And for Mr. Hunter, Mr. Melendez, if you could tell us, did El Chapo say anything yesterday when he arrived to any of the agents, either on the plane or at the airport?
I'm actually going to defer the first part of that question to Dag Blanco.
We were notified yesterday that he would be on his way to the United States, so although it was not a surprise that the extradition was requested because we have been asking for his extradition, we did not know that it was going to happen yesterday, but we had made those plans in advance. We felt confident in our request for extradition, and he was delivered yesterday to us, I believe, aboard a Mexican police plane, I believe. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. And with respect to the second question, we can't comment on any statements he did or did not make with reference to his trip over.
Two questions, sir. Does anybody here think it was politically motivated, the timing? And the second question is, what extra precautions are being taken to ensure he stays in custody?
We actually won't even speculate as to the first part. What we know, as Dag Blanco has just stated, is that the extradition process had been in process, forgive me for using the same word twice, for some period of time, and that there was a lot going on in that process. We were unaware that it was going to happen, but we were ready for it, having planned for it. With regards to the second part, we're not going to comment.
Mr. Chambers, will he be held at Pearl Street and then from there go to court here in Brooklyn, or where will he be held physically?
Well, for security and safety purposes, we're not going to comment on that, sir.
Okay. The forfeiture of $14 billion, roughly how much of that do we have eyes on? How much visibility, how much will we be able to get? Do we know where he's put this money? Just what are the prospects for collecting some significant amount of that?
We can't say what the prospects are. It's a notice of what the government is going to seek. There has, I can say, been an extensive investigation that has spanned years that allows us to come up with a number for which we make that allegation. We can't say how much we have eyes on or how much we'll recover. But what we do know is that the government will be vigilant in trying to recover as much of those assets as we can.
This question is for Mr. Turner, if you can possibly answer in Spanish as well as
Okay.
English. We know that he has a lot of information of the process of transporting drugs and the dealings with the Colombians, even though the Colombians had not been so prominent in the last decade versus the Mexicans. What can you find out having him in custody? Would he be willing to cooperate, to give information? Will be a plea, or if you will go to actually have try him for his crime?
Yes, well, he'll have to make that decision with his attorney about whether he wants to give us any information, but we can't obviously at this point comment on that. It's just what we stated in our accusations and in our allegations in the indictment, which is that he had this extensive network in Central America, in South America, and throughout the United States. And this investigation will reveal that as the case proceeds. En español, le pudiera decir que en este momento no sabemos si el señor Guzmán Loera va a cooperar o dar información. Tiene que decidir con su abogado y en ese momento entonces sabremos. Pero en este momento no tenemos esa información.
Just in the back, sir.
The type of witnesses, how high level in the organization do they have, and will Sean Penn?
Well, we can't, for obvious reasons, describe the witnesses. We can say that the caliber of witnesses are strong and great. They will provide, should there be a trial, a very detailed and intricate look inside the inner workings of the organization, its rise, and what we believe is its ultimate demise.
How long do you think a trial like this would expected to last?
With right now approximately 40 or more witnesses and the admission of what we believe is going to be volumes of evidence, it would take multiple weeks. It would depend on a lot of variables, including the court schedule, but we believe that it would be a many weeks trial.
He doesn't face any charge with the death penalty. Was that a prerequisite to getting the Mexicans to agree to extradition?
As part of the extradition process, we had to assure the Mexican government that the death penalty would not be sought in this matter. So he is, as it stands, if he's convicted of the CCE, he's facing a mandatory life sentence. And for all of the narcotics-related, narcotics trafficking sentences, he is also facing a maximum sentence of life.
Why is Brooklyn the best venue for his indictment?
Because it's Brooklyn. I'm sorry, I couldn't pass that up. There are many venues. We believe that Brooklyn, this office, and the evidence that we have provided the greatest opportunity for us to conduct this prosecution. As I noted in my remarks as well, there was there are several multi-ton seizures of narcotics, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, that occurred here in this district in various parts, including Brooklyn and Long Island.
Basically, everything is going to be concentrated here. Then, because there are so many places around the states, everything is going to be in Brooklyn.
Well,
and second, in that case, what is going to be the permanent facilities? Because we know this guy, he's dangerous, and he escaped twice. Can you tell us a little bit more? What are the arrangements in the future? Because to be clear, it can be, I don't know if it's going to be focused here, or it's going to be a tour around the United States.
Well, it is going to be a comprehensive presentation about the Sinaloa Cartel's, the rise and the fall of it, including volumes and volumes of testimony and evidence that will be admitted about narcotics activities that occurred throughout the country, throughout the districts that we cited, including and beginning with the purchasing of these loads of drugs and its transportation through Mexico, across the border, into these states. So it's going to be a comprehensive presentation. It's not going to be exclusively focused on activity that occurred here. It will encompass activity in the Southern District of Florida, in the Eastern District of New York, and in many of the other districts that we spoke of. This is also a process, so as we get closer to trial, we will decide what evidence will be admitted, but it will be a complete and comprehensive, if it is a trial, presentation of evidence. With regards to your second question, for security reasons, we really can't discuss any details with regards to where he'll be housed, if he's convicted and sentenced to his mandatory life sentence, where he would be sentenced there. What we can do is assure you that what occurred in other countries will not occur here. He will remain in United States custody.
That means that he will be arraigned in other states as well? Will he be transported later to Miami?
We're here to announce this indictment. This indictment has been unsealed. He has been extradited here for the purpose of answering these charges. No decisions have been made with regards to anything else.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, it's also to say that, just so you asked the question about Miami, this is a joint indictment that with using the vast evidence from Brooklyn and then adding the resources and the sort of witnesses that we also got in Miami together with the attorneys at the Department of Justice and Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. I mean, I want to emphasize that this show of force that you see here, the prosecutors, the agents from all three of these offices, plus intelligence specialists that we also have in our offices, this has been an amazing group effort, as U.S. Attorney Capers talked about, within our three components. And we put them together, and that's why the indictment is a joint one. Y en español es para decirle que este es un trabajo, una acusación que es de información y evidencia combinados del distrito de Brooklyn, el distrito de Miami y también del Departamento de Justicia, de los abogados trabajando en el Departamento de Antinarcotráfico. Y es un trabajo, en este momento, él va a estar aquí en Brooklyn para el enjuiciamiento, que es una combinación de lo que tiene de evidencia en Miami, Brooklyn y en el Departamento de Justicia. O sea que él no va a ir después a Miami después de este caso porque estamos unidos. O sea, es el mismo enjuiciamiento.
For the Assistant Attorney General, just one quick question. What are we expecting to learn from this case, if you don't mind doing it in Spanish as well? Are we expecting to...
Okay. Got it. How long till the report? They want to take this. I think it's going to be about a minute. Oh my God. Police helicopters. Can you slide me a little left? Oh, okay. Aww. Can we stay on the river and just move upriver? They're going to come to us in about 20 seconds, I think. 10 seconds. And this is John Del Giorno live in Newscopter 7. We're down over Brooklyn where El Chapo was just transported across the Brooklyn Bridge. We have been doing stories on this earlier today. Appearing in federal court in downtown Brooklyn, the police originally requested that he appear via closed-circuit video. However, El Chapo requested that he appear in person, and a judge agreed with that decision. It's a tremendous logistics operation to move him from Lower Manhattan into Lower Brooklyn, and that's why we just saw a closure on the Brooklyn Bridge. What you're seeing is the tail end of that motorcade just arrived at the courthouse complex in downtown Brooklyn. The Brooklyn-bound Brooklyn Bridge is now in the process of being reopened along with some streets in Lower Manhattan. And we're live over Brooklyn. John Del Giorno, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
about El Chapo here without it turning into a discussion about corruption in Mexico. And that's because people here really believe that corruption and that prison escape are all tied together. Yeah. These are corn, right? Yeah. Yep. Go ahead. Done? So as you can see, we're pretty much in the middle of nowhere here. These are just cornfields. We're about a mile from the prison. It's all the way over there. The tunnel ran all the way underground to that house. And so we're going to that house right now to see what we can see. But that's where El Chapo.
This is actually over here.
Good? Yeah. So as you can see, we're pretty much in the middle of nowhere here in Mexico. These are just cornfields, and that's the prison right there. It's about a mile away. The tunnel ran all the way underneath these cornfields and to that house over there. So we're going to go see that house because that is where El Chapo emerged from. Good. It's good.
So this is the road
to the house where El Chapo escaped from. And you can just see the prison right over the house here. Yeah. So there it is right there. There's the house. That's where that hole was in the ground right there. And he was able to just come right out. And as you can see, there are lots of law enforcement officers here because they're looking at this, and there's, as you can see, there's lots of law enforcement here because they are still gathering all the forensics down there in that tunnel. It's about a mile long, all the way underground. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
¿Qué tal?
Bien, bien. ¿Nos podemos parar ahí?
¿La silla de qué lado es, por favor, si se
¿Cómo estás?
Oye, pero para ver si te vas a meter la mano. ¿Hombro? Oh, no, se va para atrás. ¿Quieres ir a mandar? No, si quieres. Me voy a la playa a mandar. Sí, a la playa.
I know. I think so. Yeah. You want me to ask him and without him knowing that we're rolling?
Ready? And this is where you can really see the And this is where you can really see the audacity of this plan. That's the prison right there. And right over here, in the prison's own backyard, that's the house where El Chapo emerged from, then disappeared. And this is where you can really see the audacity of this plan. That's the prison right over there. And right here in the okay.
We know where? You know where he is? You know where he is?
Oh, we're contracted by the house.
All of us? Yeah. All right. Good seeing you. Happy New Year. Stay safe, all right? Fine, brother. All right.
I don't know. I don't know where he would be. I didn't know which car it was. Huh? I don't know either. Which car it was. I don't know.
Yeah, you want Prater to pick up some? Hey, so it's a little bit of a weird thing. Saw all the you guys saw too, right? All those cars rolling in. And I was
Yeah, that's cool. Just let him know we can't.